thank you very much, Mancom, and especially for Anneke as well, for organizing this very special ASPASA regional meeting. My name is Solly Potgieter. I'm from Afrimat, the wonderful company. And before we go and start this session, I would like to have a moment of silence to be observed for those colleagues who have lost their lives in the mining industry due to accidents or diseases. Just a few seconds, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. For the next few minutes, I just want to read Members' Code of Conduct. It's very important for ASPASA to be neutral and be here. So please give me a few minutes. Members note that discussions at this meeting will be limited to discussions about ASPASA business. Members agreed not to discuss the individual company needs, preference, or strategies. Members of this association commit themselves to the following principles: to refrain from any actions which are or may be construed as being anti-competitive by competition law, namely the Competition Act number 89 of 1998 as amended. Members who feel uncomfortable with discussions at the meeting must note their discomfort with the chairman, excuse themselves from the meeting, and ensure that the objectives and department are clearly recorded. Members are reminded that everyone attending this meeting must comply with competitive law before, during, and after the meeting, and during formal and informal discussions. Amongst other things, you may not discuss with each other or exchange confidential commercial information. Include information about prices, tenders, customers, sales, cost, revenues, trading terms and conditions, discount, rebates, promotion, terms of supply, purchasing strategy, sales strategy, distribution strategy, or any other business strategies. Any discussion to lead to collusion are illegal, and if you are guilty, your business will face severe penalties and you may be criminally liable. Members further commit to promote the affairs of the association and the industry in accordance with the fiduciary duties towards ASPASA and not to use a meeting to further the interests of this respective business. Thank you for the moment you gave me. I would again like to thank all the speakers for the effort you put in and for the time that you're here to spend with ASPASA. I would like to confirm the agenda. All members receive the agenda, and do you accept? Okay. With further ado, I would like to start off to say the first speaker will be the financial provision, Charlene Barkies. Thank you, Charlene.
Good day, Solly. Good day, ASPASA members. Thank you very much for this opportunity. This is like a growing presentation. Every time I look at it, something new is happening. So I think I'm done, and then I need to start again. I would just like to share the presentation with you. Can you see the presentation? Good. Right. So what is happening in terms of the the biggest difference that has happened in terms of the financial provision is that we're moving away from an NPRDA regulated financial provision system towards a NEMA regulated financial provision system. And that needs to be done by 19 June 2022. So we have just received an updated, not just, let me be more accurate than that. The 11th of July, we've received an update government gazette with the latest information on what is required in terms of the regulations. So what this means is that by 19 June 2024, at this point in time, all operations must adhere to the requirements. And what came out the 11th of July is that the new regulations will be promulgated on the day that it's gazetted. So in terms of the new regulations, the concern is that if you have not prepared in advance, there's no window period. So, and I understand this has been coming on for 4 years now, well, actually a little bit longer, but the requirements have changed significantly in each one of the gazetted documents, and therefore every time you had to adhere to requirements, you would have put in work, and then it would change, and you would have to change the work that you've put in. But in essence, what has happened now is that the latest draft or the latest document comment is promulgated, and in this document, I'm going to go through what is required. It seems to be the last draft, so we need to do the following. You need to apply for an annual in your financial provision. You need an annual rehabilitation plan. You need a final rehabilitation plan, and you need a risk assessment report. Now, in this specific regulation, they've included Appendix 1 for the annual rehabilitation plan, Appendix 2 for the final rehabilitation plan, and Appendix 3 for the risk assessment report. So not only can you choose any annual rehabilitation plan, the minimum requirements are now specified. And in terms of these minimum requirements, it specifies who is supposed to do it, it specifies how it's supposed to be done, and then it specifies the methodology to be used. So it's a very regulated environment if you consider what must be done for even a small mine in order to adhere to the requirements of the financial provisions. And as you well know, if you do not provide your financial provision updates as is required by the Department of Minerals, then you can lose your license. So understanding what the requirements are and how you're going to meet them is quite critical in the system. So in terms of the scope of the financial provision, it looks at rehabilitation and remediation. So it means that if you dug a hole, you need to make a plan of how you're going to change the landscape so that that hole will not harm the environment. You need to provide for decommissioning and closure, and you need to provide for specific latent impacts that might arise due to the requirements. So if you, for example, if you leave a hole behind, part of what's going to happen is that that hole will fill up with water, and the management of that water will now become your liability. So if at any point there's not inflow and outflow and a good quality water, and heaven forbid a bacteria forms in this water and it rots and something happens to the environment or to people, then it becomes your liability, and that financial liability you cannot write over to anybody. So there's called a latent impact. This latent impact needs to be managed by yourself, and you cannot hand it over to anybody else until closure. When you get closure, the funds required to manage that latent impact must be paid over to the DMRE. So if you didn't hear that little sting in the tail here, what has happened now is that in terms of the legal requirements, the latent impact costs will be paid over to the DMR on closure, or you can't close the mine. And then you need to look at specific requirements in terms of remediation of the latent and the residual environmental impacts. This was previously not required. So previously, what we used to do is we had a list of requirements, and then we would put in the numbers, and based on the numbers, we will have a rate, and you will multiply the amount of area in this, or the volume in this case, with the rate, and then you will come up with a specific figure, and that figure will then provide you with information as to what the closure cost will be. No more. This is now changed in that you now need to develop an annual rehabilitation plan. That annual rehabilitation plan will have a cost, and it must be calculated as per Appendix 1. You will have a final rehabilitation or decommissioning plan, and that will have to be calculated as per Appendix 2. And then you have a risk assessment report, and that cost will have to be calculated as per Appendix 3. Then you also need to understand that the holder of an environmental authorization must, for the period during which the environmental authorization or closure plan remain valid, ensure that there is compliance with all the conditions, and that it must be audited. And that audit report must be reported to the competent authority, in this case, the Department of Mineral Resources. So in terms of the costs associated, it's not only the cost of calculating how much it's going to cost. Yes, that's a big cost, but the audits of those calculations become additional costs that the mines need to carry. Further, any activity, including the operation of that activity, that has previously been exempted, now becomes a listed activity. And in terms of that exempted activity, you also need a rehabilitation plan. So those of you who have operated in terms of the SANRAL requirements, in terms of the EMPR and the exempted activities, previously you just needed to have an EMP, and that also fell away at some point. That EMP now has to have a financial cost associated that needs to be audited. So not even in the case where it is exempted does the financial provisions fall away. In terms of the implementation, we have had several meetings with Dee Fisher and public platforms, and she has said that there will be a prescribed template and a spreadsheet, and there will be specific requirements. We've not seen this. So even though it was a commitment, we did not see the templates come out. So not even in the latest documentation have we seen a template for calculation. What we have seen, and let me explain, it's not a template like the ones we used to have under the NPRDA. What has happened is it has become a report with a methodology. So it is not a template in the sense of a document that you can complete. It is a template in the sense of a thesis that you need to write. You need to provide all the context, and based on that, you can then calculate your financial provision. And in terms of the financial provision, it needs to be reviewed. So not only do you need to do this once off as a big cost, you also need to review it annually, and the people that can or must review it has been specified. So in terms of the annual rehabilitation plan, the final rehabilitation plan, and the risk assessment reports, these all have requirements, and the people that needs to meet the requirements has to be qualified, and they have to be independent. So specifically in terms of independence, we see that the requirements specify that it cannot be a person from a mine. It needs to be, it could be another person from another mine. Let me be specific, but it cannot be in the same group. So if you have a group structure, you cannot send a person from a mine in the group to another mine in the group. It has to be somebody independent from the management or the decision-making capacity of the mine that needs to be able to compile the requirements that is specified in the reports. Then the reports needs to be done according to Regulation 12, which then specifies exactly what these reports must look like. And they've now specified the methods, luckily, so you can see exactly what is required. And based on that, all of that needs to be ready in 2 years. So I would like to say good luck and all the best. Yeah, this is a little bit about me. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Celine, you did it so well, nobody got questions, so you are excellent. Thank you very much. The next speaker, it's the latest on technical.
Sorry, jammer.
Yes.
Who will be the auditors?
You will have to appoint the auditor, Gert. So it would typically be an environmental consulting company that's qualified EAPS, environmental and assessment practitioners, that would be the auditors. It's not a financial auditor.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Elaine. I understand it better now as well. Thank you for that. The next speaker is the latest on technical, Saartjie de Venage. Thank you.
Thank you, Solly. I apologize for the change in the agenda. It was just that I have another meeting that starts at 11 o'clock, and I'm sitting at my customer's office to be ready for that meeting and to be, yeah. So can everybody see my screen that just says quality management? Okay, great stuff. Thank you. Many of you know me, and you know that quality is my big song that I sing. You know, I learned a lot from my dad, who was a surgeon, but there was one thing that he told me that I never understood until I became involved in mining and quality assurance in mining. He said, you can rest assured during economically difficult times, patients will go to complain about doctors at the medical council. And there would be hearings and so on. It wouldn't cost the patient anything to lay a complaint, but it would cost the doctor a huge amount of money to either prove their innocence, or if they were not innocent, to pay out to the patient. And he said to me, what you have to understand is sometimes people are so desperate for money that they will use this as an opportunity to get something in. It doesn't cost them anything to lay the complaint, but they might get something out. And I saw that this is true in the mining industry as well, and I don't believe that it's only in the mining industry. the fact is, when times are economically difficult, people are looking for quality material, and the very first place where they will try to save some money or get some money back is to lay a complaint against the mine who provided the aggregates. So quality in difficult economical times become extremely important. But over the last few months, I have noticed something else, something that I have started paying more attention to, and this there were specific trends at various customers and at various mines that I noticed, and I thought that I just want to talk to you about this. If you look at quality management, sorry, just a moment. I just quickly want to go through the whole thing on quality management. It will be very quick because it's leading to where I want to get out. So we want to manage the product so that the customer gets the same thing every time. We're looking at repeatability and reproducibility. So how does one get that? We do it by doing the same thing in the same way every time. How will you know that you've done that? You write down the recipe. And that recipe is the quality management system. So the basics of a quality management system is you have a plan, your recipe or your procedures, you do it, you implement it, you check whether it is correct, and then you act on that. So it's these 2 points that I actually want to talk about. Your plan is the procedures, do is the implementation, the check is your audit or non-conformance, and acting on it, you want corrective or preventive action. So for quality production, we look at what goes in, we look at what happens in the plant, and we look at what goes out. But here is my whole thing, and this is about non-conformance. I noticed that many people, many companies have their procedures in place and they implement those procedures. But then they stop there. They don't check whether they are meeting the requirements of their procedures. So a non-conformance is when your product missed the target. In other words, the recipe fails. So if you were in the restaurant business, if a recipe fails, you are going to do something about it very quickly. But often I find that people are very reluctant to do something if the laboratory says that a product fails and did not reach the target. And that is an enormous problem. Then the quality management system fails there at the non-conformance. But you know, the interesting thing that I've noted, and this is not just at one company, it is at different companies, at different mines. I noticed that nobody wants to sign a non-conformance report because they are scared that it is a guilt admission and that this is going to lead to disciplinary action. And that is a problem. So it is important that you have to explain very carefully that the non-conformance is not about the person. The non-conformance is about the product. When people understand, I have literally been threatened by with labor action because of these non-conformances. The thing is, if people understand that we are not looking at the person, we are looking at the product, they are more open to completing a non-conformance report. And this is where the value of a quality management system comes in, is with that non-conformance report. So what happens is we have a product, we test that product, then we report if there is a problem. The problem must then be corrected. That's where that reporting and correcting it, that's where the non-conformance comes in. And then we have to test it again. And so it's a cycle. So when you have missed the target, what should you do about it? And this is the non-conformance report. So we have a non-conformance form, and on that we have the date, the sample number, the lab technician who did the test, what the lab technician found the problem was. And then this form, it's not just left there in the lab, it is taken to the supervisor on duty in the plant. And the supervisor says, I saw this, it has been reported to me, and this is how I am going to correct this the problem. So this is the corrective action that I'm going to implement. And then it doesn't stop there. The lab has to go back and say, listen, your corrective action worked or it didn't work. And if it didn't work, what are we going to do again to correct the situation? So this becomes an incredibly powerful tool if the production manager uses the non-conformance reports on a regular basis. If it's kept on file and maybe on a weekly basis, you go through those reports during the production meeting that you might have, and you say, look, I see we regularly have just for example, at 4 o'clock in the morning, all the samples taken at 4 o'clock in the morning are too coarse. So what is the issue? How are we going to correct this? Maybe we cannot correct it, but then maybe we shouldn't be testing at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we write down the solution. So over time, this non-conformance file becomes a tool that you can have to identify preventive action. First, we want to implement corrective action, and then we want to have a look at preventive action. And of course, I mean, if we know these are the problems, these are the solutions to the problems, then if a key employee is absent, that file can be taken and we can see, okay, so for this problem, this is the corrective action that we have to implement. And we can avoid issues if we use it over a long term to determine preventive action. So this is something that I really want to encourage you about. I know that through the technical committee, we have spoken about quality many times. But I feel that non-conformances are not getting the attention that it needs. And firstly, because the guy who does not want the non-conformance report in the first place is normally the production manager. Which is something that I don't quite understand, because it helps them to, it facilitates their work. So I think that there is a misconception about non-conformances. Non-conformances at the mine internally that is reported by the laboratory is not a complaint. A non-conformance that is reported is something that prevents you from getting a complaint and a non-conformance report from a customer. So this is the thing that I really want to talk about. I want to create awareness of the importance and the value that there is in non-conformance reports. And I really want to encourage you. This is something that is not going to be implemented from the bottom up. This is something that has to be implemented from, from the top down. So I want to encourage managers to really take a hold of the idea of non-conformance of not the person, but the product. It's true, sometimes a person will be the problem, and then that can be addressed through retraining. It's non-conformances. The purpose of the non-conformance is to deal with the product and the problems that we have with the product. So I want to encourage you, if you want to advance in your quality, non-conformances is something that you have to start implementing. So the non-conformance register will give you a history for informed decision making, and it will help you to implement preventative action. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Sarki, from ASPASA, we would like to say thank you very much. And I will be the first one to say, I agree 100% with you and I support every word you mention. It is actually very important to look after non-conformance and make sure you follow up on them. Thank you very much, Sarki. Appreciate.
Thank you.
If it's possible, you know, a quarry starts at the
hand is up, Solly. Gert's hand is up.
sorry.
Nee, praat jy, sê ek het my hand opgehad. Ek het hom nie opgehad. Dis seker dalk nog van net maar af.
Okay, skus
Is hy nou af? Skus tog, jammer julle.
Okay.
No problem, Gert, no problem. Maybe you are waving to your wife. You never know. Very important, the quarry start.
En ek is elektronika en ek is al oud. Ek verstaan nie al die goed nie so.
No problem, Gert, no problem. A quarry starts with the blasting. And sometimes we miss the whole point about explosives and the whole quarry, the running of the quarry, the planning. It starts in the back of the quarry at before the whole road. And therefore, explosive update, Corey Rautenbach, thank you. Please, all yours. Corey?
Morning, guys.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Sorry, we're busy here. We ran out of Wi-Fi and we're on a Mockaplan issue here, but yeah, hopefully you can hear me. Okay.
Thank you, we can, Corey. Welcome to South Africa.
Thank you. Okay, I'll share my screen. So just for interest, so I won't be able to see hands or whatever. So please just shout and stop me. Let me just share the screen. Thanks. There you go. There you go. Just confirming. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen? Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, guys. Okay, so I think it's important that we talk about the recent CIE directive that was issued on the 9th of June with regard to the control and the regulation of Class UN 5.1 pumpable emulsions. I think it's important that we share the knowledge and the what now of this directive. So just as an introduction, I summarized it for the purpose of this discussion. So, well, all dangerous goods in South Africa is classified by the Chief Inspector of Explosives, and they use the United Nations Dangerous Goods Transportation classification for this. Now, we all know that you have there's 9 different types of dangerous goods, of which explosives is class 1, and then oxidizers and organic peroxides under the ammonium nitrate emulsions fall under that class. So the Chief Inspector of Explosives, the SAPS, is the regulated and the authorized regulator to classify these dangerous goods. What you see on the screen is a ZAX certificate, classified emulsion, UN 5.1, as an authorized dangerous good to be manufactured, sold and used in South Africa. What is also important to know is that it's not just the Explosives Act. The Occupational Health and Safety Act refers to this dangerous good A&E as non-detonable explosives, whereby the Mine Health and Safety Act refers to it in the definition in Chapter 4 as pumpable explosives. So also, it's not a new thing. There's only, because of this directive, there's some new requirements. However, the regulation of dangerous good and also Class 5 A&E has been in South Africa, well, since the early 2000s, by means of the National Road Traffic Act that was implemented in August 2000. I mean, that's exactly 22 years back. And then also the Transportation of Dangerous Goods regulations is also enforced, or was also enforced, from the 3rd of August 2001. So the regulation of dangerous goods has been with us for more than 20 years. Now, the directive that was published and circulated on the 9th of June, the essence of that is that UN 5.1 and emulsions A&E has to be controlled from the supplier, the transport, storage, use and disposal of A&E. So ammonium nitrate emulsion is to be deemed a regulated substance in terms of this interim directive, which shall be complied with, and that all mines must apply for a permit, either a temporary transport permit or a continuous transport permit, to receive A&E at their operations. That's for underground mines and surface operations. The area where the A&E is to be received and or stored must also be approved by the CIE. So previously, you have permission for bench deliveries, and your permit refers to bench deliveries, magazine deliveries, and in underground mines, it refers to shaft deliveries or silos. So previously, it was only AN, ammonium nitrate pearl silos, that was approved and licensed by the Chief Inspector of Explosives. But in terms of this directive, you have to approve and license your A&E silos, as well as on, especially on underground mines, you have warehouses where bagged emulsion is stored on surface. That also needs to be approved and licensed by the Chief Inspector of Explosives. And according to this directive, it will start on the 1st of January 2023. So when you apply for your permissions and approvals and CTPs, there are certain documents that you need to supply as supporting documents. For storage facilities, you need site and layout plan, as well as detailed construction drawings, the appointment of your receiver issuer, proof of operational risk assessment and procedures in terms of the Mine Health and Safety Act, Regulation 4.1 and 4.2. That has to do and focus with security and control of explosives, but also the safe application thereof. And also the GMRE letter that they don't have any objection for A&E to be delivered on the bench or to your storage facility or at the shafts. So A&E delivered to and stored in surface silos and warehouses. You'll obtain a separate CTP for that, because it's not bound to a delivery schedule like for shaft day deliveries, where you receive your explosives on the explosives delivery bay and it gets sent to during the day on a scheduled downtime to the underground operations. Where A&E is delivered to the explosives delivery bay for underground storage, it will be delivered on the same day as explosives, because it's alternate. The days where you receive explosives and the days you receive accessories, fuses, detonators. So the explosives will be taken underground first, according to the scheduled downtime, but A&E may be taken underground anytime before the end of the shift, and also before the delivery of any other accessories. Then it is important that you will account for all your A&E received, transported, stored, used, and destroyed, as in the case of current Class 1 explosives is being controlled. For underground storage, it will confirm with the Mine Health and Safety Act regulations 4.1 and 4.2, talking about security control and safe application and storage transport of explosives. Just in short, in a nutshell, the difference between the two, Class 1, which is explosives, and Class 5, which is emulsions. Well, Class 1 can be used, blasting cartridges, those type of explosives can be used by the criminals for cash and transit robberies, ATM bombings, or any other crime as is. You don't have to manufacture or put it through a process, whereby emulsions has the benefit that it cannot be used as is. You need the base emulsion, you need the sensitizer, and also you need the manufacturing unit. And then one of the best prevention benefits that you have, or the better benefits of emulsions, is that, well, the criminals don't have 25 to 30 minutes to wait on a crime scene for the product to gas before it becomes explosives. So that's one of the major benefits from a security and control point of view that you have when using emulsions. Explosives Class 1 also can burn to detonation without any warning, whereby emulsion will burn mostly without burning to detonation, if it's not confined, but it will give you some time. There's always a time. The incidents that there were internationally and both locally, there was a time that the emulsion was burning, and then it was burning for about 75 minutes before it detonated. Then also delivery at shaft, as we've seen and talked to the previous slides, it's scheduled delivery to the shaft, and there's a specific delivery and a downtime where A&E can be delivered not according to your schedule. If it's delivered to a separate storage facility, a warehouse, or a silo. Then it's also explosives. Class 1 is stored in licensed explosives magazine, whereby emulsions is stored in an approved silo or a warehouse. You have the benefit that emulsions has a much reduced safety distances, and you have also the benefit, because it don't detonate or deflagrate without warning, you can you have the possibility of evacuation in especially underground mines, where you don't have the luxury of vast distances that you can separate it from offices and workshops. So yeah, that's also a big benefit. And then lastly, the Chief Inspector of Explosives in South Africa is also looking at track and tracing of individual units of explosives. And as soon as the new explosives regulations that will be promulgated in terms of the new Explosives Act 15 of 2003, as soon as that has been published and promulgated, then all explosives Class 1 will have to be tracked and traced to individual units. And of course, with the emulsion, that won't be necessary or required. Okay, that's in a nutshell. I can just say that we are busy, and especially through ASPASA, we've circulated the directives, and we have received instructions from a majority of members to apply for approval of storage facility where that is the case, but also to change the CTPs to allow for the delivery of emulsion, A&E, to their operation to include that in their current CTPs. And that's my story in a nutshell. Okay. Any questions?
Corey, I just
Yes.
want to say thank you.
Okay.
Any questions, people? Or thank you very much, Corey. Appreciate.
Thank you.
Now we get to the Mineral Council update. Stanford Malachi, please, all yours.
Thanks, thanks, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Solly Chairperson, and good morning, everyone on the call. I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, sorry. Just trying to share my screen quickly. Is it visible on your side? All right, thank you. I'm going to touch on three aspects from the MOSH Learning Hub perspective. MOSH, for those that may not know, is the Mining Occupational Safety and Health Initiative at the Minerals Council. All that we do is we identify leading practices from one mine which have already been proven to be working, and document them for purposes of others to learn from in order to improve health and safety. As you know, zero harm, elimination of fatalities, and achieving zero harm, it's our aspiration as the Minerals Council. So I'm going to touch on three risk areas. One is transport and machinery, which is a safety risk area, and two health areas, which is dust and noise. Falls of ground, I thought it may not necessarily be applicable to, especially some of the leading practices that we are currently running may not necessarily be applicable to the nature of mines that you have. Okay, then on the transport and machinery space, we have a project, a special project called Industry Alignment on TMM regulations. You'll recall that in 2015 there were regulations which were promulgated, and some of those regulations were suspended indefinitely. And there has been a process of engaging with the DMRE with regard to those, and that particularly relating to the auto slowdown and stop of TMM or trackless mobile machinery. The CEO Zero Harm Forum, being one of the apex structures within the Minerals Council, it is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the industry moves towards zero harm. And one of the focus areas that they have highlighted was that we need to look at transport and machinery, low-hanging fruits. And in this instance, they relate to rail-bound equipment, which is largely for underground mines. And in that respect, we have been doing some analysis of fatalities from 2017 to 2021, and work is undergoing in that respect. The second aspect relating to the low-hanging fruit is the TMM movement, or trackless mobile machinery movement, for both surface and underground. And in that space, we are supporting adopter minds relating to the traffic management leading practice. And with regard to the suspended trackless mobile machinery regulations, there are several focus areas that we are engaging in as part of the special project. As I indicated, one of them is operational readiness. The second one is CPS readiness, which is collision prevention systems readiness, localization opportunities, skills capacity building, the effect of collision prevention systems on operators, technology management, supply and OEM legal liability, and international collaboration. I'll take you through each one of them in terms of where we are with each of those. On the operational readiness, very much related to the TMM movement and for surface and underground. There we continue to support mines that are adopting the traffic management leading practice, especially as it relates to identification of risks, where we speak of traffic flow and risk analysis, which is a key building block towards making sure that we understand our significant risk. So in that space, we have been conducting communities of practice for adoption, what we call COPAs, where we bring these adopter minds together so that they can learn from each other in terms of the successes, the challenges that they are experiencing, and therefore being able to move with regard to that. On the collision prevention system readiness phase, we are continuously engaging on bilateral basis with the OEMs and the OTMs, OTMs being the original technology manufacturers. We also engage with some of our internal structures, like the consulting, mechanical and electrical engineers on this TMM. There is a task team specifically for that. We're meeting every month on a Friday, during the second week of the second or third week of the month. So basically what I'm trying to say is, for those that would want to be part of these discussions, you are most welcome. I know Nico, when he was still around, he was very much involved with some of these technical teams. The engagement with the OEMs and the OTMs and even our member mines, it's largely around the technical documents relating to the specifications that needs to be met with regards to the collision prevention systems. And I think for more details, if I can refer you to the MOSH website on MOSH, I mean www.mosh.co.za, you go onto the transport and machinery page, then you can get all the documentation that relates to the collision prevention systems. We also had work groups which were established for surface mines, for underground mines, and for the quarries. And those first sessions were held. We are looking forward to having the second round of discussions. All these are meant to help the mines to prepare for collision prevention testing, because we understand that that is very key for as part of our readiness. You probably are aware by now that the lifting of these suspended regulations, it's due to be lifted by end of December 2023, as per the decision taken at the Mine Health and Safety Council 2 months ago. Then on localization, we're looking at opportunities for localization through this process of collision prevention systems to say, where can we increase local jobs? Where can we be able to balance saving lives and saving livelihoods? And last week, Friday, we had a highly successful workshop involving all these OEMs, OTMs, the mining industry, mining companies, sharing their experiences around how localization can be done. And we also had the automotive business industry in the form of NAMSA sharing their experience as well, so that we can learn from others as they may have traveled the same road. So this is an area that is still unfolding. We'll have follow-up sessions just to make sure that we are able to close the gaps where necessary. On the skills front, we have put together a report on knowledge transfer for skills. You'll probably be aware that the implementation of the collision prevention systems may come with challenges regarding skills, particularly those that involves installation, repair, and maintenance. So we have put together a knowledge transfer framework with regards to IRM skills, that is installation, repair, and maintenance. That report is also on that website, as I've just indicated, for ease of reference. We have then gone further to engage on phase 2 of the project, where we looked at case studies of mining companies that have gone through a practical process of knowledge transfer. So that report, it's almost ready. We will be engaging on that report with the CMNE task team and the multidisciplinary technical expert team before it is published or put on the website. Then with regards to the effect of collision prevention systems on operators, in that space also we have just developed a draft scope which will be going out to respective service providers so that we understand what effect this collision prevention system technology could have on the operator, so that we can avoid unintended consequences. On the international collaboration front, we are very much engaging with the likes of the ICMM and IMEST with regard to some of the strategies that they have put in place on issues related to collision prevention. And one of our team members will be going to Australia to participate in the working group discussions, especially that their timelines are not very much aligned with our timelines. They are working towards 2025. We are working towards 2023. There might be a possible challenge there in case we are not aligned. Furthermore, as I was speaking around leading practices, we are also engaged in a process of addressing challenges relating to winches. Probably in some of your operations, you may not necessarily be dealing with winch problems, but for underground mines where winch systems are key and they are a source of fatalities, we're looking at hosting a day of learning on the 15th, on the 15th of September. We will be having a day of learning where we're bringing various role players together to discuss possibilities. In relation to that, we're also developing a winch bow tie, which helps us to understand and to delineate some of the risk factors that are involved in the space. Other aspects that we are engaged with, it's with the Mine Health and Safety Council. There are forums there that we participate in the form of MREC, the TMM, which is the Regulatory Advisory Committee dealing with the trackless mobile machinery. There is a team called a committee called MOSEC that also deals with issues of the winches and also issues of the TMM. We are also participating in the regional tripartite forums. Recently, we went to the Free State, we were in Limpopo and in KZN. Chair, I don't know how much I'm doing with time. I want to get to the next part of the presentation. It's going to be very short, this one on dust.
Stanford, go ahead, by all means.
Thank you very much. On the dust front, this is one of the risk area that we are very much involved in. It is dealing with health issues. There are several leading practices that we are already promoting. One is CRTM. CRTM is continuous real-time monitoring. Here, what we're looking at is to ensure that we hold our engineering solutions effective. We want to test the adequacy of our engineering solutions that we have put in place in order to manage dust suppression. So some of the things that we do there is to track adoption of these leading practices, but we also document success stories as to which mines are doing well so that others may be able to follow suit. The next leading practice is what we call CBET. It's the conveyor belt automated transfer point dust suppression system. It is utilized largely in the coal mines. Maybe some of your operations might be having utilizing conveyor belts, and we might need to look at where the CBET leading practice can be of help. In-stop atomization, it's largely happening in underground mines, especially in the gold mines. The dust analyzer is still a new one that we are documenting in one of the coal mines. And then we also have a process where we developing dust risk bow ties. And we are working very closely with the coal sector and the gold sector. And if in your area you also have a need for a risk bow tie for your area, I think we will be very willing to engage further with the ASPASA members to be able to address the risks that specifically found in your minds. And maybe just to give you an example of what I'm speaking about, this is a typical bow tie. It unfortunately is just very small. You may not be able to see. But in terms of the processes that we have undertaken with these ones for coal and gold, we engaged with their industry members to get their views. We subjected to scrutiny, and we involved members once further, and we have an independent expert reviewing the bow tie, and we will be holding a bow tie workshop afterwards to ensure that. Then I just want to go back a bit to the presentation. We're also holding days of learning, and on the 1st of September and the 9th of September, we're having 2 such sessions for the coal industry, one in Secunda and one in Witbank. And again, if in your area there is a need for such a day of learning, we will be very much interested in making sure that we hold one for yourselves. These are empowerment sessions where we engage on topical issues so that people that are doing the day-to-day work can be refreshed in terms of work that they do. And by the way, these are free. We don't charge for this kind of events. And then we continuously engage with mines through orientation, mine level adoption teams, what we call POE verification. These are portfolio of evidence verification site visits, where those mines that are adopting, we visit them to see whether they are doing the right thing. And we guide them along the way in terms of how then can they improve. And then we do mine site visits, either to identify new leading practices or to do some investigative work on new work that is underway. Just want to go back to the flow. This is the Coleridge Day of Learning that is happening on the 1st of September and the 9th of September. Topical issues that we cover will be on the conveyor belt, dust suppression systems, the bow ties that we have spoken about, the water sprays effectiveness, and the issues around the surface drill rigs. Then if I move shortly to the noise, on the noise front, which is a health risk area, we have a program called IBMQI, which is Industry Buy and Maintain Quiet Initiative. You will recall that for noise, the challenge there is noise-induced hearing loss. And for us to deal with noise, we need to eliminate it from the source. When we buy machines, we must buy quieter machines so that we don't have to retrofit the machines when they are already on site. For example, doing muffling and so forth, which at times might be problematic. So we have had a number of documents that we have developed through the IBMQI process. One of those is the noise measurement document. Some of those include the online screening tool where we indicate to the occupational hygienist how to go about measuring noise of equipment or doing screening for noisy machines. And just some of the sessions that we have held, we do hold sessions for company specific, but if there is a group of minds that want to be in one session, we can also do that. Again, these are free. These are what the Minerals Council provide free for its members, but also for just to help the industry to make sure that we are doing the right things when it comes to measuring of noise or doing critical noise equipment screening. Chairperson, I'll leave it there in the interest of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for him? Stanford, thank you. I believe that you did an excellent job and they all understand what you're talking about. Last but not least, I would like to mention that this gentleman is very respectful in the quarry industry due to the fact that when he arrives on site, he would actually like to lock him up in a toilet and wait until the time is gone to let him pass. But I've been with Marius for a while, and Henry Ford mentioned that the only way to be great work is to love what you do. And magic happens when you believe in yourself. And Marius, you are one of those special persons. So let's talk. The next person I would like to introduce is a very special person. He's respectful, especially when you arrive on your site. You would like to lock him up in the toilet and let him be busy and not do the audit. But to be honest with you, Henry Ford mentioned that the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And magic happens when you believe in yourself. And Marius is one of those persons that believe in himself and do a great job. Marius, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Solly. Yeah, it's the first time that I've been compared to a fort. I don't always appreciate the fort. But yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation. And it's not everybody that can do it to lock me up in the toilets, but you are the one person that got it right. Thanks a lot, Solly, for the time and give us some effort or some feedback on what's been going on from the audit point of view of the ASPASA members. Now, my presentation will be run from the office. Anneke, do you have my presentation available there? Just show it on the screen.
Please tell me when you see it.
Okay, still waiting.
And now,
Not yet.
in a second. Try again. Okay, share. Okay, can you see it now?
Thank you.
There we go. Yes, it's on the screen, Anneke. Thanks a lot.
Just trying to make it slideshow. There you go.
There you go. Thanks a lot, Anneke.
Okay.
Okay, just a feedback on the audits being done. You can go to the second slide, Anneke. Okay, we've done so far for this year 59 audits at member sites, and with an average score of 88.88%. Now, the score sounds a bit lower than previous years. It is actually a bit lower. I'm not so concerned with the 88%. Now, people that don't know the percentage score rates would think this is a distinction, but majority of the sites obviously will not be happy being awarded with the 88%. But we've got to be very careful that it doesn't become just a numbers game and fighting for high scores and not really looking at the non-conformances that's been identified. Now, through all these 59 audits so far, we had a higher score of 95.72% and then a lower score of 37.50%. Now, I must add that 37.50% is a gap audit for a new member. We had so far 3 new members with first-time audits. So obviously a 37.50 pulls down the average scores of all the audits done so far. But the challenge for this operation now, obviously after being introduced into the audit protocol and what is required, and having the non-conformance lists, is now to improve on the next audits. So quite often we see with the first-time audit a lowish score, and that's why we call it a gap audit. Now, so far there's been 12 show places, which is excellent. If you look at the right-hand column, the total for 21 was 9 show places. Show place obviously meaning 95% plus. So far there's been an increase on the show place operations. 27 5 shields, 14 4 shields, and 4 3 shield operations. 2 shields and 1 participation. Now, the 37.50% obviously is just a participation certificate. But you could see the 2 lower scoring sites. There were the new members that took part in the audit so far. Obviously, with all the audits, members are still maintaining a very high level of compliance. We've often said that the ASPASA members mining aggregates and sand and other commodities, they've got the best safety statistics in any mining in South Africa, and I stand to be corrected on that, but it's been published in numerous reports like that before. The ASPASA members have even been linked to the World Cup champions of rugby in South Africa. So let's hope we can carry on with that legacy. Thanks, Anneke. The next slide. Now, the entire spectrum of the audit protocol is covered every year, but there are certain issues that that have been highlighted in the 21-ish audits that we do concentrate on with our audits currently. The focus areas obviously is the elimination of LTIs and high potential accidents. We are proud to say that it's going for 6 years without a fatal, but we've got to be very careful of that achievement, because there has been or there have been some high potential accidents that happened in our industry. The improvement of processes to identify risks and non-conformance from internal inspections, that is a focus area. I will show you some pictures on this presentation as well, and obviously some of those findings goes back to internal inspections. I will highlight on those where a thorough internal inspection would have identified certain of the non-conformances. Enforcement of requirements on pre-start checklists, that is pre-start checklists for the plant and for TMMs, and obviously your competent A safe declaration of your quarry pits as well. And interesting, quite often it happens that on a day of audit, people tend to forget to do their pre-start checklists. If they are just trying to get their operation going before we hit our operations with the walkabout, I'm not sure, but be careful not to forget those pre-start checklists. Improvement of housekeeping in and around crushing and screening plant, obviously a major concern for us as well. Compliance to isolation and lockout requirements, always a concern, because we see so many non-compliances on lockouts and isolation. In most cases, I must report that we cannot question if people are making it safe before doing a maintenance job, but obviously paperwork that goes with it is always a concern. Thanks, Anneke. Next slide. Improving accident incident investigations and finding the root causes. Quite often through various bodies, people are being blamed for finding a guilty person for having an accident and incident. And obviously we've got to be careful with that, but follow our investigations right through to get to the root cause, to put preventative actions in place. And then combined with the next one, the PTOs, planned task observations, to add value. With our accident incident investigations and finding the root causes, putting corrective actions in place, we've got to make sure through PTOs that these corrective actions are put in place thoroughly and everybody understands that in their new procedures. Compliance to women in mining, HIV and TB, dispensing of condoms, etc., and other directives. We need to keep in mind that we need to comply with these. Quite often we see that condoms are not being dispensed at operations, or even outdated and expired condoms are being issued. So there are certain directives that we need to comply with. Near-miss reporting, a reporting of Section 23 refusals. Near misses, always a concern. You go to sites and they will report to you that they've had no near misses for a period of 12 months. Now, I must tell you that is impossible. During a walkabout in a plant, I would be able to list about 10 or 20 near misses that could have contributed. And I know it's a challenge for operations, for the employees to understand the importance of near miss reporting, but campaigns need to be spread out on these and even on Section 23 refusals. Contractor management, always a difficult one. Now, we don't like to talk about contractors on our site because they are deemed as our own employees, but obviously a bit more focus needs to be put in place with these people on our sites that do not know all our operations, and make sure that they comply to your procedures and policies and then to legal requirements. MQA accredited training, obviously issue that we always focus on, and quite often we see fly-by-night type of training taking place at operations just as a tick box to say that we have done training, but it doesn't add value to your operation or to the competence of your employees if we don't follow the right accredited training to be provided. Thanks, Anneke. There's a breakdown of the scoring of the audits done so far. As you can see, top left, 59 audits, and bottom right-hand corner, the average scores. Those marked in red are obviously of some concern. Context of the organization. In some cases, we've seen that, and this has been a requirement for the last couple of years, that your documented system must be developed according to the ISO 45001 standard. And we still see that some of the documented systems are not done according to that. Risk assessments, only 86.6%. That says, including our occupational hygiene surveys, that only 86% of all risks are identified at our operations. Emergency preparedness also 86%. The following 2.9.1 and 10.2 is with regard to accidents and incidents happening at our sites, a fairly lowish score because there were some lost time injuries that were recorded at some operations. Non-conformances, you can see a negative mark there. Now, this will be used when either Section 55s or 54s could have been issued on non-conformances identified during our walkabout. And there we do recorded some major non-conformances against certain operations. Thanks, Anneke. Audit findings so far. As I've mentioned, the ISO 45000 requirement. In some cases, documented systems still refer to OSHA's 18001, and OSHA's 18001 obviously doesn't exist anymore. Revision of risk assessment when processes change. We see modifications on plant, extra conveyor belts being installed, additional sections, and then no real risk assessments are done according to that. Effective use of occupational hygiene survey results. The dust, noise, thermal, and all the other surveys are done for a purpose, not only to have a document in your file. I must say majority of the guys use these survey results to their benefit to put corrective actions in place. But quite often we still see that employees or managers do not really understand the readings reported by occupational hygienists. Make use of non-MQA accredited training providers. As I've mentioned before, there are some fly-by-night training providers that we need to eliminate and rather focus on the MQA accredited providers. Compliance to lockout isolation. As I've said before as well, lockout isolation is still a major concern, especially on the signing of documentation and declaration that equipment's re-energized and being put back into action. Complete full implementation of traffic management plans. We heard from our previous speaker about the MOS programs being put in place. Traffic management plans been with us for a while and should have been fully implemented some time ago to minimize the possibility of accidents and incidents. But sometimes you still go to sites and they would tell you that they are 80% or 85% there in their full compliance. Traffic management plans is a working document that needs to be revised quite often. Securing medical confidential information. Sometimes we still see that confidential information and personal files are not being secured and locked up as required by the law. Thanks, Anneke. Lifting equipment, lifting tackle. It's good to hear that MOSH is implementing leading or looking at leading practices with lifting tackle and lifting equipment. Inspection and testing, storage, training of operators and registers for issuing. Also a major concern, we see some bad practices going around that we need to correct in our industry. Accidents and incidents. I've covered these on some of the previous slides. Near-miss reporting, investigations, implementation of corrective actions, and information sharing, and then the PTOs. We've got to learn from other people's mistakes. Unfortunately, some people still see it as an embarrassment and doesn't want to share their information, but we do call upon the ASPASA members to share your corrective actions and learning lessons from previous accidents. Machine guarding, still some challenges with effective guarding. We felt some time ago that we've won the battle on machine guarding, but then we still see some challenges and people not putting correct machine guarding in place. Thanks, Anneke. There are 2 revised occupational hygiene code of practices, the one for thermal stress and one for noise, that were supposed to be implemented by 1st May this year, but we all know that there's been challenges around this and the understanding of these new revised code of practices. And to date, they are still even running workshops by the DMRE to understand all the requirements. We've got to be careful with this. The law said it must be implemented by 1st of May, and all these issues must be put to bed as soon as possible. Risk-based fatigue management. We don't often see records of fatigue, and in most cases people will say that, yeah, we don't work shifts, so fatigue is not really a major concern. But when you look in the dustbins, you see a lot of Monster and Dragon, all these type of energy drinks, empty cans in the bins. So yeah, we've got to concentrate on fatigue management and not be surprised when people do fall asleep behind steering wheels of TMMs. Better practices need to be put in place for that. Right to refuse dangerous work. We have seen from previous reports at certain quarries where no refusals have been recorded, that some inspectors would tell them that they are denying the opportunity for refusals, which obviously is not always a fair comment to be made, but we've got to be clever in the way that we report a refusal for dangerous work. Refusal might not be the correct wording, but we've got to find a clever way for people to understand the requirements and then have registers and reports available with that. Thanks, Anneke. Recent focus areas by the DMR inspectors. There's just a couple listed that I've run into during recent audits. We've seen that DMR is back in all fours doing the inspections and supporting operations out there as well. And it's not only covering the COVID requirements, but we see more often audits and inspections taking place. Compliance to slope instability code of practice. There were recently serious accidents, incidents with regards to fall of ground, even in open cast mines. So obviously with the accident that happened, this put a lot of focus on our open cast mining as well to have a look at our own slope instabilities. Maintenance records inspection of TMMs. As I said previously, pre-start checklists and then the maintenance records as well. We need to make sure that these are all up to date. Conveyor belt installations, including fire protection, We've seen now at several operations that inspectors are starting to enforce or asking the questions about flame retardant belts and fire suppression systems. It's all risk-based, so we need to have a look at our risk assessments, and where necessary, we will have to store fire protection systems on our conveyor belts. Engineering inspections, control of lifting equipment, and control of flashback arresters. Two specific engineering inspections that we've seen some findings in our industry as well. And then, as I said, occupational hygiene, milestones and objectives being complied with and achieved. Three very interesting Section 54s and 55s that I've recently seen at operations. A 54 to be fixed, back stacking and storage practices in a store. I must be honest, first time that I've seen a Section 54 being issued with regard to that since I've been doing audits for ASPASA. But be careful on your stacking and storage practices. Dynamic testing done on TMMs, a Section 55 being issued recently on that. Now, obviously, 55 refers to, in majority of the cases, to compliance to legal requirements. Nowhere in the law does it say we've got to do dynamic testing, but it is on the guidelines of the TMM Code of Practice. So if you've included this in your Code of Practice, please make sure that dynamic testing is done on all your TMMs. Health and safety rep cannot carry other legal appointments. We've seen a 54 now recently at an operation where the health and safety rep was also trained as the competent A person to do examine and make safe on slope instability. But this person also carried the health and safety rep appointment. And there was a 54 issued for that to correct this practice, where they said is the safety rep are representing the employees on the site and could not carry any other legal appointments. Interesting one. Thanks, Anneke. Just a couple of pictures that I've shown to close off my presentation. Some good and bad. Always interesting to see what other operations look like. Yeah, there was a bit of a oil spill, and on a day for audit, that's not really what we would like to see. Cleanup actions required there, but you can see quite often there's oil spill in that area. Thanks, Anneke. The oil store, very decent, very neat. All pneumatic pumps there, and it looks like very good housekeeping practices at this operation. Thanks, Anneke. Previous speaker also referred to dust suppression. Now, obviously, this doesn't look good. Quarry guys will always tell me, yeah, with startup and running empty, it's difficult. But this one was during normal operation. You can see there are some water on the ground. So there is dust suppression, but obviously not working effectively. So we need to have a look at our crushers and at the transfer points to have better dust suppression. Thanks, Anneke. As you can see on that surge stockpile, wet material coming through. The next picture will give you a better idea of the fine mist spray that they have implemented, but you can see there's no dust flying around. And there you can see the fine mist spray picking up the dust and dropping it down. Very good dust suppression at this operation. Thanks, Anneke. Talking about own inspections. Now, obviously, these type of spillages on your structures can cause some damages to your rollers, idlers, and your conveyor belt. Need to have a look at these type of practices. Thanks, Anneke. Lifting tackle. As you can see, there are tags on it. Quarterly inspections being done, all red, color-coded. But I must be honest, the hoist here in the middle, I wouldn't feel very comfortable to use that old rusted hoist. Questions to be asked about the service provider that did inspect and certify this lifting tackle. Thanks, Anneke. Normal inspections, firefighting equipment. This guy really thought he improvised by tying a knot onto that little piece of string that went through the seal. But the main problem is the seal broke off, and that should have been reported. But people doing inspections on fire equipment need to attend to these seals not being broken off. Thanks, Anneke. There you can see the damage that's been caused to return idler and even the conveyor belt, where return idler got stuck because of spillages, and obviously no inspections being done on this side because it should have been picked up a long time ago. Thanks, Anneke. Some of our biggest enemies with regards to machine guarding are those guys with the cutting torches in their hands. As you can see there, a big hole being cut around the plumber block to have access to a greasing point, but now it gives you access to the head pulley as which we cannot allow. Thanks, Anneke. On this platform, it gave us access to the head pulley as well. Clear indication that they do not really understand the full extent of the requirement to start these head pulleys. And Anneke. Again, normal inspections. You know, if it was done, they would have seen the spillages, and in the tow pulley there was a guard actually removed between the trip switch and the tow pulley guard. Now it gives you access to the impact idlers, even the tow pulley there as well. Something. Impact idlers also wrist-based, needs to be guarded, square position, and these guys didn't pick it up. It's a new installation done, and impact idlers needs to be guarded. Something. Yeah, there you can see the tow pulley guards, gives you access to the tow pulleys itself. Just went backwards with these guarding at this operation. Shocking stuff that we saw there, and all guards need to be reevaluated to close those gaps. Thanks, Anneke. Now, it's obviously not all bad stuff that we see out here. As you can see, this operation, guarding practices, high standard, everything covered as it should be. That is what we see at majority of our operations. In this one, as the chairperson, you will recognize this operation. I like to brag about these tunnels and what's being done at this operation. Very good practice. That's Anneke. Workshop. Now you can say that it was good planning that no maintenance work was done during the day of the audit. That workshop looked so clean and neat and tidy, but it just shows you what can be done. Know what this workshop looked like previously. They made a major cleanup and demarcation in the workshop. Excellent practices. We'll see on the next photo as well. Thanks, Anneke. Very good practices, and even the next one as well. All three pictures were taken in the same workshop. Very well done to that operation. Thanks, Anneke. Just a couple of nice pictures of our operations. Looks very good. Quarry pit, all in control. Plant in the background. Not a lot of dust flying around, so all run operations. Anneke. Quarry pits in the Western Cape, as you can see, the benches as well, and high faces, heat operation, good quarry development. Anneke. This is the last slide, one of our big operations. Also good operation. And I think that is it, Anneke. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Solly. If there's any questions?
Marius, it seemed to me you've done an excellent job because there's no question. Thank you very much, Marius. And from yes, Marius. From my side, I just want to thank each and everyone, especially the speakers and Anneke, and especially from Gert Coffee as well. Thank you very much. And Marius mentioned that the lunch is served at his place, so you're all welcome to go to Marius. But enjoy the week and be blessed. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Solly. Thank you.
Thank you, Solly. Keep well.
Ja, Solly en baie dankie vir jou. We really appreciate. And to everyone involved, it was a good meeting, I think. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Solly.